ReZero is a series that can honestly be defined by its darker moments in which our main characters face with adversary which he must overcome. Return by Death is both a blessing and a curse for our main protagonist, Natsuki Subaru, and through this power, he resolves many issues at a mentally jarring cost. In the second season of ReZero, we arguably saw some of Subaru's most gruesome deaths. Our main man has had his fair share of horrible encounters. Despite this, after reading through the third portion of Arc 6, I feel that we've encountered a death which makes all of these look like mere child's play. Before I continue in this video, we are covering spoilers from Arc 6, and I'm well aware good old Echidnut has done a video on this too. However, after heavy contemplation and realizing Mitch doesn't give two fucks about us covering the same content, I decided to put this video out, and much like Mitch did, make it as spoiler free as I possibly can. Arc 6 literally starts off with action nearly right out of the gate, which was surprising after seeing how he began the arc prior. We're met with many new obstacles and bumps in the road that Subaru and company has to encounter and be forced to overcome. One of these issues arise in chapter 14 and 15 of the web novel, one in which Subaru, Anastasia, Ram, and Petrash find themselves trapped underground and have to work together to find a means of escape. Eventually, after wandering down this path, they reach a break in the cave, two separate areas which they can choose to proceed. However, there's one slight issue with one of these choices that are presented to our crew. They have to choose between the right path, which is described to reek with the witch's miasma, or to go to the left path, which appears to be safer than the right. Subaru and company decide to venture down the left path, avoiding the miasma-filled route, but they'll realize far too late that this was the incorrect choice. Needless to say, again to avoid spoilers, something happens down the left path which results in Subaru resetting and now having to somehow convince Ram and Anastasia to go down the right path, which reeks of the witch's scent. If it wasn't bad already, the two people he has to go along with aren't exactly quick to act on Subaru's plan. Entirely skeptical of Subaru, they eventually continue along the right path alongside him. Now, when I first read through this chapter, I honestly thought nothing of it. At this point in the story, after reading Arc 5 and prior, I'm pretty used to the normal chatter amongst characters and how these characters interact with one another. Things like Ram and Anastasia's sassiness and Subaru's pathetic and sad attempts to lighten the mood. This is all fairly normal to a reader who's been going along with the web novel series since the beginning. What's described as hours pass as they continue onwards, and Subaru, in his normal fashion, attempts to lighten the mood with idle chit-chat between the group. All seems to be going well until Ram randomly brings up some touchy subjects with Subaru. The topic of whether or not Subaru cares about Rem is brought up, which leads to Subaru getting somewhat annoyed with Ram, and as things escalate, Subaru and Ram eventually begin to argue. As things go further, Subaru literally begins to choke Ram out, and despite their power difference which Subaru directly addresses, he continues to pressure down on her neck, using his unseen hand to pin her limbs so she is left helpless to resist. Subaru continues to choke her as he hurls insults her way, in a fashion that we've never quite seen from Subaru normally before. At this point, the two display hatred that is described to be unlike any other in the series thus far. Subaru continues to squeeze Ram's neck to the point where she's literally about to die. Somehow though, Ram manages to gain enough of a breath to cast a spell which staggers Subaru back, allowing Ram to recover. But instead of reconciling, the two only escalate things further, hurling more verbal insults at each other. Before the fighting can resume though, Anastasia does attempt to defuse the situation. And as Anastasia interjects, both Ram and Subaru are growingly more and more irritated with Anastasia now. Despite their current state, Anastasia still tries to defuse the situation, urging the two to calm themselves, even stating that it's pointless for the both of them to die here for nothing. At this point, this could have been the turning point of this story, but things went a lot worse than you'd expect. Eventually, one thing leads to another, and Ram is stabbed in the chest by Anastasia, using a knife that she had concealed up until this point. Surprisingly, Subaru isn't bothered by this for too long, and they continue onward as Anastasia ensures Subaru that he can place his trust in her. Understandably so, Subaru's hesitant as they press onwards, but things only get worse from here. Just like with Ram, Subaru ponders on how he can use the unseen hand to finish off Anastasia. Thinking to himself, Subaru ensures that he won't make the same mistake that he did with Ram, and eyeing Anastasia's slender figure, he plans his attack. However, unbeknownst to Subaru, someone would beat him to the punch. We've seen some dark shit in ReZero, but I've never gagged or felt as nauseous as I did reading the events that followed. Keep in mind we've already seen the rabbit death, and we've seen some gruesome shit in Season 1. And for those of you who read through Arc 5, we've seen some pretty messed up shit too. But this has to take the cake. As Anastasia and Subaru shake hands to ensure their trust in one another, a gust of wind blows past Subaru, slicing Anastasia clean in half. To summarize, the web novel goes into great detail the visuals displayed before Subaru. The blood gushing before him, the strewn guts and shit covering the ground beneath him. It's honestly one of the most unsettling things I've read in the series to date. And keep in mind, we've seen the man be eaten by ass rabbits in Arc 4, and we've seen some pretty bad dead-end loops in Arc 5. What makes this scene especially dark is the fact that Anastasia isn't dead. She's alive, gripping onto Subaru's hand, her upper half literally swinging in her desperate grasp. Her lower half is spilled beneath her. Anastasia continues to grip Subaru with all her might. Instead of attempting to aid Anastasia in any way possible, Subaru instead screams at her to let go. Anastasia continues pleading with Subaru that she doesn't want to die. And reading this web novel chapter also reveals an even more haunting undertone to this scene, regarding the original Japanese text. However, that would be treading serious Arc 5 spoilers, so we'll avoid that for now. Just know for all you anime onlys, when this is finally animated or when Arc 5 is finally revealed, you'll see why this scene is so fucking unsettling. Repeatedly, Anastasia and Subaru continue to exchange dialogue, Anastasia attempting to hold on to Subaru with all her might, while Subaru screams at Anastasia to hurry up and die. This is dialogue we've never seen Subaru use before, not in a normal sense that is. He literally grips Anastasia, or what's left of her body, by her face, muffling her cries as he forces her off of him, tossing what's left of her body aside while hauntingly describing how the blood loss and injuries made Anastasia feel light as a feather. Subaru encounters Ram once more, who is hellbent on killing him, but before she can raise her wand to deliver a final blow, all Subaru hears is a violent crunch as a warm liquid spills over him. All the while, Patrash, who had been previously missing from most of these encounters, emerges and Subaru seems somewhat relieved. Keep in mind, he's almost disregarding the bloodbath before him, as he attempts to mount Patrash and continue onwards, but Patrash doesn't allow him to. Growing angry once more, Subaru continues to hurl insults at the ground dragon as he did with Ram and Anastasia, and his anger begins to get heightened by the witch's miasma present in the cave. As he continues to yell at his companion, he realizes that in Patrash's mouth lay hints of pink hair and brain matter. Subaru then comes to a horrid realization that Patrash had killed Ram, crushing her skull in her mouth. Subaru's final moments in this loop are met with his ground dragon, as he too is crushed up by Patrash. Keep in mind this was all due to the witch's miasma and the right path that they decided to take. And if you haven't picked it up already, this is what drove them all insane. This is what pinned them all against each other. Currently I'm on chapter 32 of Arc 6 and I can confidently say by far, this is the worst loop that I've read yet. And this is probably the worst loop that Subaru has ever experienced. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below, and if you're an anime only, I'd love to hear your speculations on why these events transpired. Theories and discussions are always a joy to read. I'm going to be releasing videos like these in the future, but I just couldn't help but put a video out on this. It was too dark to turn up the opportunity. Thank you all for joining me in this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Gianne.